Hey everybody, good morning. It's David Art Becker here with BeckerArt, and today's demo with David is going to be this lovely little child here, and we're going to have a hard time doing this one. So happy holidays, everybody. And so I went into the studio and I just realized that we had a lot of snow again last night, so I'll be going out there and shoveling after this. But this one I wanted to do because this is a challenging one, and actually when you're doing portraits it's always challenging, but I love the colors of this one. And so what I'm going to be doing is I love the fact that there's a warmth and the cool, and it's kind of like at night, but it's not at night, it's like in a forest. And so we're going to see if we can get this kind of feel of just the light and thing. Let me just show you the picture actually first off here. So here's the image, and you see the little girl and the little flower that's lit up, and I'm going to show you how to do these, what do you call it, circles of confusion circles, and they call them something else, photographers call it something else, where you have these blurred around things. I'm going to show you how to do that. It's really kind of fun. It's with, we'll be doing it with, see I have it with a circle template and a sponge, and so we'll show you how to do that. And we're going to go right away into the face, because I have to do my lights first. Basically, I always do my lights, right? We always do the three-step, BeckerArt three-step. And so we'll be going from the lights to the darks. But now this one doesn't have many lights, even though she's a very cute little girl. And look at her eyes in the photo. They're almost black and dark. It's very dark. And that's the way you make the flower look like it's glowing, and everything's glowing, like the little fireflies type of things, and that are blurred. Those things only look light because of how dark it is around them, or gray even. It could be gray, and the warmth of her face. So it's going to be like a bluish purple and orange yellow is what I'm going to be using for my colors. There's a lot of purple and blue, but there's also a lot of yellow and orange for the flesh tones. All right, so here we go. And I'm using 300-pound Stonehenge. And I'm not going to wet the whole surface like I normally do it with the landscape, because I'm going to be doing the face right away, and because that's the lightest and darkest. And so, well, the flower is actually the lightest, but I'm going to keep that white and go around it most of the time, and so I don't have to put anything in there right now. And so I figure the background is dark, and even though it has those circle confusion lights back there, I'll take those out of the dark by scrubbing them out. So I'm just going to leave that alone in the background because it's darker. So I might as well go right into the face. And when it comes to a face in a portrait, one thing you got to really watch out for is that you got to work wet in the wet. You have to work soft edges. Though if you have a technique like a Ted Nuttall, I think it's Ted Nuttall, who does more glazing, and that's more like he has those little round dots on it. So you're kind of creating the shape of the face from the light to dark with light tints of color. I'm going to be going in and trying to get the darks and the lights all right away with one big wash, and all soft edged, because you don't want really hard edges on the face of a little girl. You know, you want it to be tender and really soft, right? And so that's what we're going to try to do. So I'm going to wet the face all, and start with the face, which is the lightest. The light is shining into underneath the nose, on the forehead, underneath the cheeks here. So the light is coming from the flower, and it's lighting it up, which is, it's kind of mystical and magical. So let's have some fun. If you have questions, please let me know. And let me see if I can see who's here. Hey, Robin, Karen, and Sherry. Thanks for stopping by. And okay, let's get going here. If you have questions, please just say them out. That's why I'm here. I just turn on my camera, and this is a practice. Sundays are practicing for me, and so I try to. It's a little bit more difficult. If you do want to try it, take a photo of this screenshot of the picture, because I don't have it in my newsletter. I don't have it so you can download it. So you're gonna just take it off the video if you want to try it. And yesterday I've been working with my web designer, and she's we're going to redo my whole website. And so hopefully they'll make things better for when it comes to New Year, when I'm going to be teaching you guys step by step from day one. Every video is going to be within a playlist so that you can start from the beginning. So if you know anybody that wants to begin watercolor and learn how to do watercolors, It's a free thing. It'll be all year, and we're gonna have like video 1 and video 2, video 3, video 4, and it'll all be in consecutive order, so that you can, if you want to start, you're going to start with video 1. And so that's going to be happening in the new year. All right, so we're going to start and just lay in some of the lights. And I just put in some new fresh pink. And so I used pink in this jaune number 4 to get a nice flesh tone. And I'm just going to put that where I think it needs to be, like underneath her forehead. And this is the light, and I just wet it. And so I'm going to keep it wet as long as possible, too, because I have to spend time here now and get the face done right away. No building up to it. Get your lights and darks in. Well, you definitely build up to it, but I build it up and wet into wet washes. And so the darks will come in on top of the lights here while it's wet, so that I get a nice... And with any facial features, for the color-wise, its cheeks are rosy, right? Kind of reddish or pinkish. And so I'll put a little pink in the cheeks. And I do it even if it's not in the photo, because that's the way it kind of is. Your cheeks are usually redder, and then the forehead is more yellow, and then and the chin, it's a little bit more gray. And not on little girls, because they don't have a beard coming in or anything like that, or mustache and stuff. So that kind of on a man, that's what makes it kind of grayish too. So here are my lights, right? And I'm working with my small brush because I am working detail right from the beginning. So this is one time where I'm doing the light to dark, but all together in one wash. Like the whole BeckerArt 3 steps are all together, because I'm doing the lights right to the middle tones, right to the darks, right to the detail. So it's like the 3-step in one step. Well, not really, but like you follow it along. So I want to make it nice and soft, and so and I want to keep the lights light. And it looks like some people are just coming here. Morning, Maria. Good morning, Sherry, Barbie, and Kat from Florida. Bokeh, that's right. The bokeh circles, that's what it's called. Thank you so much, Sherry, for... I always forget that. I always remember circle of confusion circles, but I always forget bokeh. All right, so pink in the cheeks. Of course, her lips will be a little pink, so I'll put a little pink in her lips, I mean. And now I'm going to go with my smaller brush, not my small round brush, but just a round brush, so I can actually do details of dark. Dark's going in right away. It's I have to, because it's like I want the soft edges, and so I'm going to go in with her nose first, and I'm going to get a really dark, warm color at first to switch from dark to light, and I'm just going to try to get the part that's going to be soft edge between the light and the dark. And I'm using thick pigment so that it doesn't bleed all over, because if I use a lot of water on my brush, then it's going to bleed. So I'm just going to right away get the darkest dark in there and get it right now. No coming back to this. This has got to be done now, and not later. Just get it done. Here's the top of her eyebrow. This goes together with the nose right here. It kind of falls right in together, right underneath her eye right here. And I drew it on really light, so I didn't have much of the line going to be showing. And so this is giving me, and it is bleeding more than I like it to, but I can go back in and make it even darker yet. Later on, so I still have time to go back in later, but I'm going to try as hard as possible to try to get most of this face done with the soft edges. That's what makes it look very cute. If I have hard edges on there, it'll make it look like she has wrinkles, and you don't want lines on her face. You want to just be all soft edged. So I'm just going to go in here, and even if it turns out medium and not all the way dark, I can re-wet it later and come back into the getting the darks again later. Like the bottom of their mouth over here is all going to be light, lightest part. And her forehead up here is going to be nice and light. Now her hair is going to be dark in there. So let's put a couple of her hair, a little bit of her hair showing down. And so we'll make that just a little bit dark. Now, not all the way dark all the way yet. This is just still the soft edges. I want to get the soft edges in here. And I'm using lavender with my warm red, like my burnt sienna, or my light red I'm using here, which is like a burnt sienna or terracotta. I'm using purple with that to make it a little bit darker. And this is drying already. I better get in there and wet it with my mister because it's starting to dry already. Where's my mister? I just had it here. So I'm gonna take the mister and I'm gonna spray it over here and just pull it across there. One time, that's it. Just one time, no more than once. It's just I need it soft edged again. But now, as I noticed, as I sprayed a little bit too much, I just should have went over once and then I come back with it because now it was just a little bit too much water. Because it'll take all my hard edges and that were soft but harder, and I'll make them really soft, and they're going to bleed together now. But that's okay. We're good. Like I said, we can always go back in one more time to get this the hard edges later too. But I'm trying to get the look of the lighting right now. You know, like where the light is, and here her eyebrow is up here. And so this is the harder part. Yes, it is the harder part because you have to kind of really work on getting the soft edging and getting the values right from the get-go. But once you have that, then the rest of the painting is going to be very, very simple. You'll have it all done in no time. And go back into I use pink, brilliant pink, and jaune number 2, and I mix it together for flesh tones. And I put that together where it's going to be a little bit darker. Her flesh tone is a little bit too light. I probably should have made it a little bit darker. Maybe a little bit. I just put in fresh paint. I don't like fresh paint because I dip in for too much. Holbein is good enough that you can just put it in and let it dry because then you'll get instantly rejuvenating. So I'm not used to putting in brand new fresh paint, and because then I dip in and get way too much paint on my brush. Which is a good thing too, to get a lot of paint on your brush and learn how to regulate the lights between the darks and how much pigment you have. This is going to be her braid. This braid is going to be darker, so just go right over her braid. And this back here is going to be cool. Her shadow is going to be cool in the back of her dress here. I've got to work it quick enough so that I keep it all soft edged. That's the thing. I want to keep it soft edged. I want to get the right colors. And that's how I'm testing myself on this one, because I really am trying to get all of you to learn how to do soft edges and work in soft edge by working wet into wet. Like, that is a big, huge step. If you can learn how to work wet into wet and get soft edges and create soft edges for yourself, that's a big, big, big plus. So down on her chin is a little bit darker. I'll make it a little bit more orange down here. And I'm making my lights a little bit darker, going right over her lips. Trying to keep it all nice and wet so it's all floating. Everything's floating still down here. So it'll give me soft edges. And that's what I'm really looking for. I'm looking for soft edges. This over here is really dark. And I don't have to make it as dark as the photo. I could keep it a little bit less, but as long as I keep it in general, the light area and the dark area is separate. You know how I always talk about the design of the light between the lights and the darks, and that's what's happening here. You got to keep them separate. Even though it may not be as contrasty, and that's okay if you don't have it as contrasty, as long as you keep it nice and separate the lights and darks. So I'm pushing it within water, and so it's going to stay soft. Stay soft, and it's floating. My pigment is still floating. I'm getting a big general shape of the face. I'm not going for detail yet. That I can put in when I go in for my details. I can go in there with my brush and I can have hard edges, and I can just make the small details. Now it's the big areas, basically the big areas of light and dark. Though that, I mean, this is kind of, you know, it is kind of tight in the fact that I'm doing the face and the eyes and stuff like that. But it's not the finished detail. It's not the finished detail yet, but I have to put this eye in here so I don't lose the line. I want to lose the line here of the... And everything on her is really soft. It's very soft. If you look at the picture, everything is pretty soft. So it's best to work wet and wet on a scene like this. It's really dark. The edge of her nose right here is really sharp. And then it goes up in the shadow. Hey, Darcy from Kansas. Hey, user from Denver. Alright, this is going to be a little bit harder edge right here. And our hair will combine with that. And then we've got a little bit of dark right there. That's more of a detail thing, but I want to kind of have it soft right here underneath her nose. There's a little shape right here, and this is a little drier anyway, so that would be great to put this little bit of value change right there. And then make it go right into her cheeks, into a rosy cheeks. Boy, that pink really bugs me that I put it in fresh. So you notice I'm working a lot of details, and which I normally don't because I have to get the big shapes and stuff, but it still works. I mean, this still works because it's a little bit different because it's a portrait. And so with the portraits, you know, my only lightest light is her, and she's also the center of interest. And so it's pretty much you have to do it a little bit differently than a landscape because it just happens to be I want to make all these soft edges. So I'm still working light to dark. I'm still doing that, but it's just a little bit more complicated. And then the mouth. I'm going to put in the mouth harder edged, and I'm going to leave that alone. And so let's go into a little bit of her neck here. This is going to be a little bit harder edged right here. This is a little bit darker going down. And again, right over her pigtail or her ponytails, her braid right here, and you make that a little bit darker. And I'm using a little bit of violet into the orange. Let's make that a little bit sharper with a little bit darker purple. I really like this color combination. It's like purple, blue, orange, yellow. You know, I really love those two combinations together. It's like not blue and orange, and it's not violet and yellow. It's a little bit of both of those, and so that's kind of fun. Let's bring this down, soften it, and I have to stop now completely on the face because I just lost all the shine. So once you lose the shine, you cannot go back into it because all you'll do is ruin it by making. What I'll do is I'll let it dry, and then I'll re-wet areas, and that way I can keep this soft edged, and it's soft edged, and because I'm getting a right here. Excuse me, I'm getting a watermark right there because this is no longer wet. It's damp. But you see, if I go over this, it's picking up what's underneath there, and it's not wet. But now it is wet because I just wet it again. So I'm gonna just make that a little bit darker now. Put it a little darker and see. But now it's gonna be a watermark right on her chin. Let's see. We'll just kind of just let this play into the water, and we'll just leave it alone. So let's just leave that alone, and let's go now into this whole bottom part here, and maybe her hair will get that as a dark, and actually there's some light in there too. So let's do down here first, and then leave her face alone, and I'll go back in and get the big areas of light and dark, that's detail. All right. Oh boy, it's a tough one. let me toast you guys with my coffee. Good morning. I can't believe it snowed out again. It must have snowed about 3 or 4 inches again. Nice fluffy snow. Alright, so let's go right into her arm. Bigger brush now, using my 1-inch brush. And just wet her whole arm, wet into here. This flower is going to be light, so I can actually go around that. Well, I'll put that light. I'll just go right through everything. I still want soft edges, so I still want to go in and just get all the lights and some of the darks, right away. So we'll start with the lights again, a flesh tone, and the flesh tone I do with pink. If you don't have a pink, just use white and red, make yourself a pink, and then add orange to it, or a jaune number 2, which is kind of an orangey color with white in it also. So take orange and white, and you get jaune number 2. A lot of these colors that I have white in them. And it's not that makes them gouache. It's the way you use it. And people always feel like, well, then that's going to gouache. You're using gouache. It's too pastel-y. Well, what's wrong with using pastel colors for a watercolorist? You just use them wet into wet, and they'll become watercolors again. Everything I use here is all watercolors. There's no gouache in here. This is even watercolor white. And so I'm just mixing watercolors together. And sometimes when I use it thick, I use it like gouache. And it's just because it's a very big confusing thing that I think for people that now they made gouache sound like a whole new different kind of paint. It's watercolor, but it's when you use it thick. So it's how you use it. Now they do different medium inside the pigment. So I guess you can say that it is a little bit different in that aspect. But if I can make my gouache out of watercolor, transparent watercolor, by adding white to it, and also by using it thicker, so that now it's hard to use it thicker. You're not supposed to use it really thick like gouache, like an oil paint, but you can use little areas and make them a little bit thicker. So I'm letting everybody kind of know that now, because it's really, I like using gouache or opaque watercolor in my transparent watercolors. I mostly like the look of transparent, though. I mean, I do love the look of transparent. So that's the first thing I do is I always get the lights to look very bright and washy, like a watercolor, transparent watercolor. And sometimes I go with my darks and my areas where I'm putting a light on top of a dark, and I make it thick, and so that would be the gouache part of it. And there's no rule saying you can or cannot do that unless you join certain watercolor societies that don't allow you to do opaques in your thing, which is like Transparent Watercolor Society. They don't allow that, so don't do it. Just don't. For that, I'm actually painting right now. I'm painting a couple of scenes, and I know it's going to be for TWSA, Transparent Watercolor Society, and I don't use any gouache on that one. I can use colors that have white in them, and I use them wet into wet, and that's allowed because it's still transparent. It's using the color that's like it's a pastel color, but I'm using it wet into wet, and I'm like this one right here. This is lavender, which has white in it. This is orange that has a white in it. This is jaune number 2, and it has like a white in it. And they're beautiful colors. I love those colors, and you can use them wet into wet like that, and they're going to look fantastic. They're going to look amazing. So don't be afraid of using those colors, especially on a little girl like this. I mean, that's little pastel colors of this purple and blue, and oh my gosh, and the warmth of the orange flesh tone. That I love that. Right here, see, you have the little light, and then gets really dark around there. And you notice how I'm trying to get it all right now while it's wet. I'm trying to get the soft, like her flesh is really soft. And how do you do that? You just make it wet into wet. You blur it. You make all your edges that are gradual shape of her arm right here. You make it all soft edged. And that way it'll look like it's soft. Like her flesh tone is soft. Like her skin is soft then. Here. Top of her finger. And I can come back in and make it a darker, rich, transparent color on top of that too. And this is blurry down here, so I'm just going to blur this out because I know there's some flowers and leaves down here, but I'm just going to make it all blurry so you're not quite sure what's happening right down there. Our arm will be dark enough, and this is about the same darkness. I can't wait to go back in there and make that darker again. But let's keep that alone. Let's leave that alone now. And I'm not going to do in here the darks, because I'll do later to create the darks like her dress and around the flower. Let's go into her hair now. So I always make a path, a map of how, and a path I take in my paintings. And so I look for big areas first. And I go from light to dark, which you know that, of course, if you've been with me, that you always go light to dark. And so now the hair, I'll get the light parts, and then I'll put in the dark parts. So I'll wet all the hair. So I also still want the hair to be wet in the wet, so soft-edged. So I wet it first. I just take the whole area. And I can go beyond the hair, too, because the background's going to be dark also. So you know, I can go beyond that then, too. Now, here's going to be a tough part. When I do the hair, do I do it soft into this? So I have to make sure that this is dry, and then I go over it with a light wash of water, and now it'll become wet again. But I want to make sure that I don't go into the face area too far until it's totally, totally dry. Bone dry, not just slightly dry. It's got to be bone dry so that you can go back over it. It doesn't affect what you had done before. Now, this will be affected because it's not bone dry, so I'm going to get a little bit of a watermark right there. But that's okay. We'll go with the darker there. So let's do the side of her head, which is a little bit warmer right here. There's a little bit of light shining from the side. Going down here, down her neck here, there's a little bit of light. And this paper is great because I can rub out. And so later on, if I feel to rub something out, I can do that too. And so there's the light side. And there's nothing light except over here. There's a little violet-y part of her hair. It's like, and again, this is wet in the wet. So I'm just putting in, and I'm going to try to control the amount of pigment in my brush so that I can make it look like little hairs within a wet wash. Though it's still a wet in the wet wash, and then I'll get darker as I go along, and then I'll use my round brush to create more shapes. So now I'm going to go in, and I know she has like a dark brown hair, but you know me, I always make them redheads, so she's going to be a redhead too. But even with a redhead, you would make it really dark. A really dark red. And so I'm just going to go in there. Go the purple, a little bit of blue, make it almost a very dark bluish purple with a little bit of red in there. A little red in there. And then this is a shadow right here. There's a shadow that comes in here. And it goes right down here. A little bit more purple, almost a gray even. Not that she has gray hair or anything, but there's like a shine in her hair that looks like it's not lit up here. It's in the shadow. So this part of her head is in shadow. And this goes right into her face. And you know, you don't have to go to the exact colors of the photo. You just have to know what colors you're using in your painting, and then you can just adjust them to what you're using. Like if I know I've used these colors, certain colors in my palette, just keep on using those same colors. Don't start switching around and try to make it look exactly like the photo. Use the colors that you have on your palette that you're using already. All right, so now we're going to get in there with a little bit. Oh, well, that's a long hair. Okay, you got it right in her eye. One little bit of. That's okay though. It's it's nice to see a little bit difference in the hair. That it's like, here's a little bit of the hair. This is where you really need to learn how to work wet in the wet. Spend some time and just practicing it. Don't do it on a painting even. Just get yourself some paper and maybe the back of your paintings that you didn't use or that you ruined the front, and you just have to practice. And then just try wetting it all and just working images, working things in the painting. Trying to get soft edges, but like harder edges in a soft area too. That's the trick about getting the soft edges, is just learning how to work wet into wet. So just work wet into wet. Just get yourself some water and dunk your paper and just learn it. Learn how to go in there and just wet it. And it's, you know, it's a very professional thing to do, and I know a lot of people don't want to do that. They just use hard edges on everything. And but if you can just get a little bit of that in your toolbox of things that how to paint technique, you'll really help yourself out a lot in the long run. It really teaches you about pigment in general too. It teaches you how to use pigment. I mean, because all we are using is water and pigment, so you really learn a lot about that when you're starting to figure out how to blend and make things soft edged in watercolor. This is going to be her braid. And see how parts of her face look ugly right now. And I know a lot of you like to have things always throughout the entire painting look good, and that's not a thing. You cannot have your painting look good the whole time. You have to wait until the end, until you get the detail to make it look really good. Because you have to go from light to dark, and sometimes you're going to be in areas where it's not going to look very good. Your painting's going to go through its uglies. My teacher always said that. Your painting goes through the uglies for a little bit. And then at the very end, when you start putting in details to identify shapes and stuff, then it's going to start looking better and better. The paper I'm using for this is Stonehenge Aqua, 300-pound cold press. It's Stonehenge by Legion Papers. And so let me do this part now here, and then we'll do the background all the way around. And you notice how the hair is all just soft edged, and I didn't really go into the little fine details, though I did have a couple of little hairs here and there. But again, it's the big areas. Get those done, and then just work your way around the big areas, and then get down to more and more details. So now this dress, I'm going to go and get it, it's a little bit darker, and it's actually, it looks like it's sparkly. So I don't have to wet it all, so I can do some of it hard edged for the sparkle, or later on I can put white and I can put thick gouache type of pigment on there. You know, it depends on what you want to do. I know a lot of people are saying that, you know, I don't ever want to have it gouache. I don't want to use gouache. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, I'm trying to teach you both how to do it either way. You can do it with masking fluid, like this flower could have masking fluid on, or I can do it later with more of a gouache look. And masking fluid is just making sure that you know what you're doing before you get started, which is actually a good thing, to know what you're doing before you get going, like doing your value study and learning your value study and knowing whether you're going to make things dark and light, and if it's going to be really white of the paper, then use masking fluid to just get that, so because you can't paint around it maybe. So it's a good thing to use masking fluid, and it also teaches you how to plan your painting. So it's not a bad thing. I just I like the look of opaques sometimes in the thing, so it's just a different kind of style. And that's one thing I don't teach. I don't teach style. I teach you fundamentals of watercolor and gouache, which is watercolor too, but it's just opaque watercolor. So now there's a little bit of dots here. So this is dry. So see how many hard edges I get then? And so what you can do too is when you're doing on dry, you can wet it as you go along and just get it. So there's some edges are hard and some edges are soft. So this is all dry. So I'm going to go around this flower. So what I could have done is put masking fluid on the flower and then just go over it, and then I'd still have a hard edge right here. That is totally up to you, the artist. When you feel that that's the way you look and that's the way you want it to look, that is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Up here, make it a soft edge, go around, and parts of her braid are light on this side. Okay, so that's part of her dress, and then this is part of her arm over here. So let's go with this blue first here and get the shape of her hand in front, which is negative painting again. I'm painting into the flower to make the shape of the flower. And it is very detailed, I know, yes it is detailed, but it's still a large area, and it just happens to be right there, hard edge. So that's why sometimes you have to do a little bit of step 2 and 3 all together. But if you've been with me for this long, and for the many years I've been doing this now online, I've always done my paintings the same way. And I never do these first and try to, I know a lot of artists and teachers, they do the demos first to make sure it works for them. I always just do them. I don't do them twice. I used to do them in my class and then do them in the evening, my paint-alongs. But now that class no longer exists, so I just have to do it now one time. And, it helps to do it twice, but I don't pre-plan these. This is just this is the planning right now. I'm just doing it right now, and to practice. This is my practice of this picture. And that's one thing you guys got to do. You have to practice. You can't just always do commissions or do things that practice sometimes, so that you don't have to be worrying about if the painting becomes something or not. It can become really nice or it can't. It doesn't matter. It's about learning, and when you're learning and teaching, that's how come you should never use those paintings also for like competitions and stuff, because it should be about you learning something. And all these images I use, like for the paint-alongs, those are all royalty-free. So those are okay for you to use when you go to sell them and everything. But separate your commissions from your learning. I really think you have to do that. Just practice on things that are not going to be a commission or not going to be something that you're thinking about selling. You can sell them later on. That's all absolutely fine. But just think about what you're doing when you're learning. When you're in a class and stuff. Now, of course, you want to do beautiful paintings, but sometimes they don't turn out as good. I have a stack full of hundreds of paintings that I have no idea what I'm ever going to do with them. But they were good at the time when I was practicing. All right, so what's the path now for the background? I'm going to go this way around, and because it's slitless, and then when I get down here, or let's go this way around. Maybe I should go this way around. Yeah, let's go this way around. So I'm going to wet the area, and now I'm going to use my big brush because it's a big area. I'm just going to wet it as I go along here because I want this to be out of focus. Now there is one leaf right here that's going to be a little bit lighter, and so I'll maybe go around that. Definitely going to go around this flower. So I'm wetting a little bit ahead of myself. I'm not going to wet all the way around because it'll be dry by the time I get over there. So I'm just going to do this part right here. And now there's a lot of stuff going down here, which I don't care about. So I'm just going to let that be blurry. Use the colors I've used already in my painting. Now I'm going to use a little bit of more of the bluish purple now in the background. And I'm going to try to establish my darkest dark right over here by her face. Just so that I know my darkest dark is going to be. And I maybe can even do some of that down here. So let's mix a nice dark. So purple, Prussian blue, black, and maybe a little red. And just see. It's like a brown, right? And that's okay. Maybe a little bit more bluish purple in there. And this is going to get really, really light when it dries because there's a lot of water in here now. And let's just do a couple of these leaves that are out of focus. And see, I'm making them look like something, but I want them soft edged so they're kind of out of focus. Because I don't want them in focus right now, so that's how you work wet in the wet. When you work wet on dry, you're going to get a hard edge, right? Like right here that's dry, so look at I'm getting a hard edge. From a hard edge to a soft edge. And just keep on working it, and don't leave this area until you feel it's done. I see people working all around the whole paper all the time, and it's really hard to do that. And you're gonna get things so different looking, and the washes are gonna look different, the colors are gonna be different. Go in there and get this area done. That way you don't have to come back into it, unless you want to put really fine details into it later. And I'm not going to make this leaf green because I have no other greens in there, so I got to go with maybe a bluish, blue and orange maybe. So it's going to be more of a let's do a turquoise then. So let's make this leaf a little bit turquoise. There's a lot of purple in this part. Oh, look at that. That's really dark. Alright, so this is, has a little bit of her hand. Oh, that's her arm there still. I'm getting the shape of the flower. That is important because that's part of my center of interest. I do want that to be sharp edge right there. But then beyond that, it's going to be wet, make it wet, and then just start getting in there with your dark colors. And I'm not putting in the bokeh or the circle of confusion circles yet because I'll do that when I'm going to show you a technique of getting that, and that's be dry. And so I'm not even going to try to get them while it's wet. I'll get that all when it's dry. Get her cheek shape really in there well because that's important. Shape of her. I put the braid coming down here, which is not in the photo, but I'm thinking there's one on this side, so why not put one on that side? Edge of her hair, and I'll do that. And you notice I'm gonna let that bleed in up here because that'll be the same color. But way up here, it's really, really dark. And look, I didn't even mix it on the palette. I'm mixing it on the paper. I can do that too, where you mix it on the paper a little bit instead of on your palette. Because that looks really good sometimes because it's mixing itself on the paper instead of you mixing it and mixing it all together, making it kind of dull. Because anytime you mix, you're going to dull down the image and the pigment because you're mixing in another color. But if you do it and let it do it by itself on the paper, it becomes really nice because it's doing it itself, and so you'll keep a lot of those pigments really pure of color. And see, like this is just very gray and dull, but if I just go in and just pick up a couple of these colors and just drop them in there into the water now, and if I I could do the bokeh kind of a little bit with your brush, you can do that. But I'm going to show you the easiest way, and that'll be later. I left this area, and I didn't get it totally dark enough. So while it's still wet, it's still a little wet enough here. So I'm just going to go in there and maybe get some harder edge. See how fast it dries? It's amazing how fast paper dries sometimes. And so just always watch that. And you can always, like I said, spray it with if you take a mister and don't shoot it, just spray it over here first, spray it like this way, spray it and then just pull it over one time. There you go. That's all you need. One little bit of mist and it's fine to go back in. Because it just puts a little mist over it and making it so it doesn't dry. Now here's the darkest dark I wanted to establish, so let's go in there with a really dark, and I'm just dipping into every one of my colors up there. Look at that. I want that to be almost black in a way. Really nice and dark, and look, that must have been a tree that comes down here. And so I can put like branches going this way. So yeah, I get the smooth leaf shape because it's wet in the wet. So just work wet in the wet and try doing different shapes in the wet and the wet. And also you need enough pigment so it doesn't bleed all over too. Once it's wet, then you got to make sure you have enough pigment in your brush to put down on the paper, and that's where you want fresh paint or Holbein, which stays fresh forever. It just never hardens to a rock, so you don't have to worry about it getting a nice fresh amount of pigment. This is all dry, and this is my second palette that I made. It's not the first one, and I got a lot of empty things in there yet because I didn't get I have to buy the color, and I got a really good reflection over there. Oh well. Yeah, I'm also cleaning up my studio in the new year and going to really try to get it looking really good in here. I'll actually show you the studio one day. I would never show it right now because it is a complete disastrous mess. How much time do we have here? Boy, I've been going kind of slow, haven't I? In a painting like this too, it's a little bit more important that you take your time. learn how to do those things, and you know, if I don't get it done in the hour, you know, that's gonna be fine, because it's a portrait, and it's a little bit harder because the drawing is definitely in more important that you get a good drawing down on your paper. Now there is some in the background. There is some warmth, like a bright color of orangey thing. So you could drop those in, or do the bokeh thing, which I'll show you later. And this is not light. This is it's reflecting from my light right above me, which I don't like that. All right, we come down here, and we went all the way around. We got a dark, but now her elbow down here is the same darkness as this. So I'm gonna re-wet her arm, because it will look not in the same parts of the painting. So if I do this now, wet the arm, I'm gonna leave a little bit of the side alone, re-wet it because it is dry, and then I'm gonna bring this in there so I don't see the edge. That it's not that important that I see the edge. I want it more blurred, and I can give her a little bit of edge of her arm, and then I'm gonna make this soft edged. And there's a leaf right in front of that, and so I can use thick paint. Again, I'm using this is composed blue with an orangey yellow. We'll make it kind of greenish. And then I'll use a thick amount of paint on my brush, and then that's what you just talked about making a brush stroke in a wet wash. So watch this. I'll make sure I have enough paint on my thing without any water in my brush. A little bit of orangey yellow. Make it thick. It's very thick on my brush. And so watch this. I'm going to go in here, one brush stroke to make the shape of the stroke of the leaf. Now that was really wet, so you're not going to get it as well because it's pretty wet down here. Let's make another one. I do want it out of focus too, so that's okay too, to put a little bit out of focus. But it's the amount of pigment you're using on your brush, basically, is what it is. Now this is all dry, so let me re-wet this part and get out of focus again. Back of her hand can have a little dark right here, and I'm just using the color that I have in my brush. So sometimes it doesn't matter what the actual color is, it's just the value is more important. Here when I re-wet it, see how it made it different levels of wetness, and so that's the bad part, is when you're going back in and re-wetting parts, and then other parts are a little bit more because it's already been wet, and so that's where you have to watch it. You have to watch how much pigment do you have in an area and how much water is in the area. And now let's put a little bit more orange in here, because I like how her shoulders lit up right there, and then down here it just gets dark. I don't need to see the side of her arm really that much. I can come back in and scrape a little bit of that out, or scrub a little bit of that out. So see how the light, it's getting lighter and lighter. Her face now is light up a little bit more. All right, let's get into the details now. That's my big ears, right? The big ears are done, and I do have a watermark right there, but that's okay. You know, you just go on now and just get your details. So I'm going to start with my flower. I'm just going there really quickly. How much time do I have? Not a great amount of time, but enough. So I'll go with a violety blue, which is verditer blue. I'm just going to go in here and get parts of this to be a light purple. It kind of goes from a purpley light blue on the edges. And it doesn't really show the edges, because the edges were shown by what I did before. This is just filling in with a little bit of color into this flower. The edges were determined when I did the darks around it, so that I don't have to do now, because that's already taken care of. The shape of the flower is already taken care of. Now I'm just coloring inside the shape of the flower. I know the center is kind of warm, and then we'll do some warmth in there. Take some pinkish, yellowish orange, and then just put a little pink in there. Now I can do a little bit of the shape of the petals. That's okay to do a little shape of the petals, but it's the outer shape that's going to be the most important. The outer shape of the flower really shows what it is. Now Let's do her hair real quick. I don't have a small round brush. I wonder where that went. Oh well, we'll go in there later. So now we're going to go and get the details. So I'm going to go around her, get her braid right here, and the braid just basically X's, right? You make little X's. And then she's got the wrap to wrap it, keep it wrapped. Now this side didn't have one, a braid, but I'm going to put it in there anyways. And so I'm just going to do the same thing I just did over here. Just do a little X. Like a broken up X. And I leave the outer edge light because it's reflecting the side of the... And if there's white, don't worry about it. We can always put a color over that. And we're going to have to totally go back into her face and get her face to look really good, right? So let's do that right now. I'm start out with the ear. I get the ear. I'm going to go from left to right. Just going to go in here and just go from left to right. Get the shape of her ear. And I generalize the ears, you know, because when you do enough life drawing, excuse me, you tend to know what the ear looks like. You know, you have the area where it's the hole, and then you get the little lip there. So you generalize it. You know, that's how you do as an illustrator. You generalize the shapes when you're doing from your imagination. You learn kind of what the ear looks like, and then you just do the same ear over and over again. You see that a lot of times with masters too. They're like Sargent. You have a certain kind of ear, a certain kind of hand that you'd always use, even though you may be looking at it original, but you still kind of work it the way you work everything else. Because you get used to it. You get used to knowing what that, like what an ear looks like, and not everybody has the same look, but if you generalize it, it makes it easier. You see how now it's so light compared to the background? And before, if I would have known how dark I need to get, but that's the part about watercolor that is the hardest for all of us, is to get things dark enough from the get-go. But it's not, you can always go back in and make things darker, that's the thing. But it won't be as rich in color because you didn't get it the first wash. And the first washes are always the best washes, so that's why you kind of want to get everything in the first wash, because it looks best when it's the first wash. I gotta get used to this palette because I keep on dipping into things that I'm not supposed to dip into. Now this gets dark right here by the ear. Kind of comes down and gets a really nice light shadow here. And this is called wetting as you go along now. I'm wetting my paper as I go along. And there's water in my brush, so I can make that look really nice. You know, I can put that in there because it's wet in the wet. But when I get down to the cheek, I better start wetting here in front of it. And this is all dry now, so I can re-wet it like this. And this is going to go down to here later. And now we're going to let this float into this area. Put a little more red in there. So I'm taking Scarlet Light, just put some red in there. Oh wait, that's opera. We don't want, well, wait, it's a cheek, so I can put some opera in there too. Let's make some Scarlet Light, that's what I wanted. So it comes down, but then it kind of goes into her chin. I'll let this be dark down here. And a lot of this all comes together as one big area, and so I'm going to try to wash it as one big area. And letting parts of it be warmer and cooler. And right here is warm. Put a little dash of red right there. Go around her braid. Down here, her chest is a little bit lighter and a little orangey red, pinkish orangey red. So we'll make that like that. And as it goes up towards the back here, it gets a little bit more purpley. I gotta watch out, I gotta keep that wet so that doesn't give her a hard edge on her face. Water smoothes everything out, so it's a very simple thing to do, is just keep it wet. If you keep things wet, they will stay soft. This gets a little bit more purpley blue, so I'm going to take lavender and just put a little lavender in here. Go around the flower again to create the shape of the flower. Here's a little throat, and that little part in your throat where there's a little hole right there. It's not a hole, but it's like a divot, a dent, no, a dimple. There you go, a dimple. That sounds best for a little girl. A little dimple right there, or a neck. And now I lost that hard edge line of light that by her ear. Oh no, it's still there. It's still not too bad. Just keep it wet and keep it working. Keep working it until you find it's perfect. Keep on working it. Five minutes, uh-oh. Here we go. We'll get close. We'll get close. Not exactly right on, but we'll get close. All right, so let's do her lips. So I'm going to go with red. A little bit of dark red here. Because her bottom lip is actually darker because it rolls in on top, and so it's away from the light. So it goes to the edge right here. Pure red on the bottom part. Putting a little highlight there. And then it kind of connects together with this part, so I didn't go quite. Actually, our top lip is light. It's light, which is reflecting the light on top. So right above. So I'm making it by making her lip underneath her nose and make that darker, and then just let the top of her top lip is lighter because the light's shining from the flower, so it's shining on top there. It's a very subtle thing too, so that's how come it's a little tougher when you're doing subtle things like that. And then this is all a little bit darker. So I'm wetting as I go along now. And her forehead is a little bit too light, so I'm just going to darken that a little bit. Her eye goes around here, and then this goes down her nose. And knowing the shapes and the contour of your face when you're doing portraiture, that you learn as you're drawing. That's more of a drawing thing. So learn how to draw the face. Dark underneath her eye. Underneath her eye is kind of darkish. So you get her eyelashes, which are darkest, but then right here it gets really dark. It goes up on the side of her face, and then this should be all soft edge. See how it's getting a hard edge in there? So let me just soften that with it, just going over with water. A damp brush, basically. I won't put any eyelashes yet because that can be a really fine detail thing. Over here it's nice and dark, and so the nose shifts to the front of the nose being dark. So you take a little bit of pigment, not much water in your brush now. Don't put any water in your brush, actually, just make it damp because you need to have it just, you're just putting a little bit of paint on there, and this is dry in the front of her nose. And I just gave her a hook. Oh boy. This is where a nice small brush would help, and I should be using a smaller brush in this. But I can't find my one right now, so we're going to use a rigger. So I'm using a dark brown color which I made with black and orange and violet. See, now I'm using very much details to create the eyelash. It goes right down into her nose here. And the edge of her nose right here is really sharp. Her eyelash right here is really dark, and so it's black. And this side goes up a little bit here, because it hides, like, it's a little shadow underneath here, and then your eyebrow is actually light or dark that goes up this way. Her bottom lip, I kind of messed this all up right here. It has to be dry again, and I'll go back in there later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the hair, the little parts of her hair. I go with purple, permanent violet, and a little bit of red, like a burnt sienna. I'm just going to go in here with a really small brush, and now I'm just going to brush in each individual hair. And now it's already 9:30. So let me just do a couple of these, and we'll be done. And pretty much you understand, wet and a wet. Just one of the things you really want to learn how to do is wet and a wet, and really work it until you get the exact shape. And again, with portraiture, it's about the drawing. Get your drawing on perfectly, because you're off a little bit on the drawing, and you can have a little girl that has her eyes on top of her head. So it's very important to get the drawing right. Making it a little bit darker her eyelashes. And then you can spend a lot of time at this. This is the part where you're going to spend a lot of time and work slow and make it look exactly like what it is in the photo. You can go strand by strand of her hair now, because you got the big parts done. And so now you're going in and just creating all the shapes of everything to make it look just like the image. And you can even add a few hairs that go over this. And I will probably look at how light this all got, so I will go over that too. And so I'll work on this a little bit more, and then go to my Facebook page to see it. Well, I'll be posting it online, so if you're with my social media, you'll see it on there. But I have to stop now, and I think we got ahead quite a bit for portraiture. And normally, like I do everything in an hour, but this again is practice for me, so I don't want to just go fast and ruin it. Because by doing this fast, you can't do portraiture really fast if you're doing a small brush stroke and stuff. So spend your time on it, and give yourself more time. And also, it's sometimes good to get away from it and come back to it to look at it again later. That's probably what I'll be doing. I'll go out now and shovel my driveway, and then I'll come back in and finish it. All right, guys. Thanks again for watching, and have a great rest of the Sunday. And I'll see you next Thursday in my paint-along. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. And if you still have questions afterwards, just always put them into the description of the video or the comments later on, not in the chat.